This is Wrestling Republic. Wrestling Republic. This is Wrestling Republic. Wrestling Republic. This is Wrestling Republic.
Good evening from London, wrestling fans. I'm your host, Ben Allison, and you are listening to Wrestling Republic's daily broadcast, your one-stop shop for professional wrestling insight, news, and reviews on a daily basis. It's Friday, and you know what that means. It means we have a lot to cover. Of course, tonight there's Rampage Grand Slam, as well as SmackDown, where we're going to see Iyo Sky defend the SmackDown women, not the SmackDown now, the Undisputed, or whatever they want to call it. It says Undisputed on the belt. It's not really Undisputed, whatever. But the Women's Championship, Iyo Sky will defend against Asuka. And then tomorrow we have a loaded edition of AEW Collision as well. So we've got a lot to get into today. So without further ado, let me introduce the man who's now back. He returned last night from his golf trip. Clark, how are you? And how was the golf?
Dude, I'm fired up to be back. The golf was outstanding. Quick shout out to my host and teammate, Paul Banish. It was an absolute blast. And then everyone at Nashville Golf and Athletic Club. And special shout out to both Chad Erickson and Dr. Jim Fish for the most fun match and all the fun we had this week. It was an absolute blast. Can't wait to do it again. But more importantly, I'm stoked to get into both Collision and SmackDown and all this network changing stuff. I don't want to bury any leads here, Ben, but I'm excited to get into it.
Absolutely. And if you guys saw yesterday, I did a video explaining this new TV deal, this new SmackDown TV deal, which we're going to go into a bit further in just a minute, because I have some stuff to say based on based on some stuff which is being said. But also joining us today with the head of reviews here at Wrestling Republic, Coby Galenzoski. How are you, Coby?
I'm doing pretty good. It's obviously been a few days. I was last on last Saturday. I had a pit stop on my weekly journey on Wrestling Off the Air with Shad. Of course, Clark was not on that event. I think he's ducking me for off-air podcasts like that. But at the end of the day, it's enjoyable. We're good. We're here. I'm here to talk SmackDown. I'm here to talk Collision. Fridays are always fun to me.
They absolutely are. Friday fun day, not Sunday fun day. But also joining us today, we have Shad. How are you, Shad?
Ben, what's going on, man? Clark, Coby. It's Friday. The week is done, and I am getting prepared for this crazy tropical storm that's happening on the East Coast. Hopefully, I don't drown in the puddle of water outside. But now I'm definitely excited to talk about a lot of wrestling this weekend. We got a lot of shows coming up, so yeah, let's get into it.
Absolutely, and I hope everything's all good with that storm. I've gone out twice the last 2 days, and both times that I've gone outside, I've been caught in just a random downpour of rain. It's been scheduled to be, sunny, so I go out in a t-shirt, and I go out there. I go to the shops. I come out the shop, and it's just bucketing down with rain, and I get absolutely soaked. And I'm just walking down the street with my shopping bags in a t-shirt, hair in my face. It's an absolute disaster. But now let's talk about something which isn't a disaster, and that is the new SmackDown TV deal. If you haven't heard already, SmackDown is moving from Fox to USA in October of 2024 in a TV deal which is 40% up from the one when they went to Fox. Now yesterday the TKO stock opened at a much lower price. I think it was a 14% decrease from the day before, and a lot of people said that it was to do with the TV deal. It absolutely, that had some effect in it for sure. It's also important to note the markets were also down, but I don't think for a second that this is a bad TV deal. I don't think that's what the markets thought either. Not to get too political on this show, because that's not what we're here to do, but obviously it's going from one network which has, a certain audience, to another one which has another one. And at times, for some investors, historically speaking, that has, made prices, go up and down because people sell stock when something like that happens. It's a 40% increase, right? Which is good regardless, but yeah, you'd expect it, okay? Big show like SmackDown, you'd expect it. but there's a reason why this one wasn't just so obvious that that it wasn't particularly expected, and that's because Fox seemingly didn't want it. Fox were not there, bidding the big numbers for it. And when that usually happens when the network you're on isn't bidding big time for it, you usually either lose money or just get around the same amount or maybe slightly more. WWE SmackDown got a 40% increase from a separate network when the network they were on didn't want it. That is just unbelievable, right? That I can't emphasize how great of a deal that is. But not only is that a great deal, the other clause in this new deal, right, is that WWE will be doing 4 specials on NBC in prime time per year starting in 2024-25, and that is huge, right? Their average viewership NBC in prime time is 5 million viewers. That is something which is just that isn't, we don't get those numbers watching professional wrestling anymore. By then it will probably, if we take into account the decreasing television ratings, it'll probably be a little bit lower. But still, you're looking at big numbers there for WWE. So that is another huge positive. Another reason that perhaps the stock fell is because of the uncertainty right now of the Raw and NXT deal. Based on what Business Insider said, it's seemingly... So not Business Insider, Sports Business Journal said it seems like Raw and NXT are going to be under one package, which it's very interesting if that will be the case. I believe currently they are, but if that continues now that they're going elsewhere, that would be interesting. It's seemingly more and more likely, like I said in that video yesterday, that it's going to be a streaming destination. That Raw and NXT are going to be moving to streaming, which would be crazy. I was talking to Clark about this before the show, and Clark was saying, would this affect the longest episodic title that it has? And the answer to that is no, it wouldn't, because as long as it stayed weekly, it wouldn't whatsoever. But that is certainly interesting. I mean, the thing is, no doubt that if it moves to streaming, that's going to be a huge deal. My personal concern would be, though, that surely if you go into a streaming network, you're more likely to get less viewers than if you were on cable, because you don't get, channel flicking and stuff like that, and people just leaving their TVs on a channel. Maybe I'm wrong there. Maybe they'll prove me wrong, but I guess WWE are very much considering taking that big jump into streaming. And long term, that's a jump which probably everybody will have to make. So it makes sense. But they've got this big deal for SmackDown. So well done to WWE. Obviously, the fact they announced it on a day where they also announced cuts was, controversial to say the very least. But it's 2 different things. Like we said in the show yesterday, everybody who's released, they can do great things outside of the company, which is very excited to see what they do as well, because there is so much potential that wasn't being utilized of many of those guys. But let's stick to the subject. Let's talk the TV deal. Clark, give me your thoughts on this new SmackDown heading back to USA.
It's really fascinating. It's funny because oftentimes I feel like initially when SmackDown went to Fox, there were whispers of like, oh, USA is going to be unhappy about putting, this superstar over on Fox, or, there was always that kind of debate, or especially around draft time and whatnot. But I always kind of felt like WWE was trying to impress Fox. USA was trying to impress WWE in a way. That's just the way it felt to me in my gut. And USA, NBC, Universal, I feel like the WWE has been loyal to for so long. That relationship has lasted forever, right? I mean, I remember as a kid watching Raw, and then you get Burn Notice immediately following on the USA Network that long ago, right? Not to date myself, but it's one of those where the NBC WWE relationship is so long lasting, to have it all consolidated on one network makes a lot of sense. The politics of being on separate networks that are direct competitors is off the table, and Peacock being the streaming service that it is, where the network went to, this just makes perfect logical sense. It all adds up one by one. I think streaming all of the shows and not being on cable out of the gates would be a mistake, but in the future, next decade, that's where we're headed. Next 5 years, I think that we need to see these shows still on cable, because cable is still a factor. And whether that means we get Raw or Raw and NXT are off USA, where are they now? Winnower.
No, that's what. Sorry, to provide some clarity, just based on what you were saying there. Raw and NXT in this new TV deal's likely heading off USA.
Likely. That's my point.
Well, it's based on the statement yesterday. It seems like it said that
So-
Raw and NXT
so
will run as still until September. So.
Even then, official or unofficial, right? Whatever. I believe that would be a mistake to take Raw and NXT off of cable television in this current space as fast as they are, because I mean, I watched the Olympics, right? That was exclusively on Peacock, the Ryder Cup, the US Open in golf, numerous other programs I've seen on the Peacock streaming service. It's difficult to navigate between. A lot of times they offer different channels and different angles, and that's a lot of what they've done. There's still commercials, just like there is on cable. I think it is a huge mistake to take half of your programming off of cable right away if you have an NBC Universal deal. I would, at almost all costs, try to keep all 3 shows on cable for the time being, whether you have to move SmackDown off of Fridays or not. That's just my personal opinion. I'm not saying that streaming isn't the future. I just right away doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, especially given the primetime time slots that you have. This now moves, likely, given the streaming factor, the Raw show to 5 o'clock on the West Coast where I live, and NXT as well, which is inconvenient for quite a few people that work 9 to 5. Whereas they could come home and have dinner and watch the show on cable at 8 o'clock. You now are recording it. It's a little different. That's fine. If that's available, I don't know if that's available on Peacock. Peacock and DVR are different services. You would hope.
That's the biggest advantage of if it did go to streaming, that it could be watched at any time.
Except for that, they make you wait for the replay on pay-per-views as of right now on Peacock.
Really?
As a Peacock subscriber,
How
No,
many
you cannot watch
hours?
them immediate replay. It's usually about 12 hours.
Wow, that's not even the case on the network.
And that's the only reason that I'm speculating on it the way that I am is I'm a Peacock subscriber, and I enjoy the service. Like I said, Olympics, WWE, golf, plenty of sports, and good documentaries. I just it's one of those things where I'm afraid that, you have some of the problems where it's uploaded a little later, or you can't watch the replay when you don't watch it live right away.
Yeah.
Little things like that immediately jumping from cable to streaming. It makes me nervous is I guess my main point on that. Do I think in the long run it's going to hurt? No, they're going to have to work out some things, right? Just like they did when they launched the network, just like they have every time they've changed networks, and WWE has shown an innate ability to adapt, right, to the changing times and to the tides. And so I have no doubt that they will, but in the short term, I do have a fear that there will be some speed bumps.
No, I mean, that's a great perspective. I mean, I'm going to be honest, Joe. I mean, we don't know if it will be Peacock or wherever. Amazon Prime's also another one which is rumored. But the fact that there's a tape delay, that it's a delay then going up, that is a big issue. And if that was the case, I mean, that's almost a deal breaker, I think, because by the next morning, everything's been spoiled, right? A couple of hours, maybe you can stay off social media. The next morning, that's a big thing. I mean, the 2 likely destinations, you've spoken about, Clark, the great relationship that NBC and WWE have. And that's why, I mean, if it is heading off the USA like they're making it sound like, Peacock does make a lot of sense, because that's the one which they already have a partnership with, and they've got a great connection with NBC Universal as well. The question is, if that was the case, then could they wrap this up sooner and done it as one announcement together? Because that might have made, investors a bit more happy. Who knows? But the other thing is, and we know they're interested because they've said they're interested, that's Amazon Prime. I mean, thoughts on Amazon Prime possibly getting it?
Amazon Prime would be another competitor, right? So why would, if Peacock has the network and they're a direct competitor to Amazon Prime's streaming service, why in the world would they let Raw all of a sudden go in exchange for SmackDown? NBC, Peacock's under the same banner, but Peacock's under the same banner as NBC Universal. Why in the world, and they've got the network, why in the world would they own USA as well? Why would they now let Raw and NXT walk? Because now you're taking those off. In what world can those be on the network? Be on Peacock
3 days later, but yeah.
Maybe if why would Amazon agree to that?
Well,
That's
so basically, here's what I was speaking about in the video yesterday. Disney, which is the other rumor, makes no sense to me because I think that well, not even I think we know Disney want to own things, right? So a one-off, just them owning Raw and SmackDown and not the rest of the WWE content, I think would make no sense for Disney, and it'd be helping a competitor by promoting them. Meanwhile, Amazon Prime are aggressively going in to get like certain sports, right? They're not getting exclusive rights for anything. They're trying to get like partial rights and all of that. I think that Amazon Prime are being so aggressive with it. They want to really try and make a big jump into sports streaming. I think Amazon Prime might be the one place which doesn't particularly care. And yes, it's very weird, but at the same time, Fox and USA were direct competitors too.
yes, but as far as the streaming service part, Fox never had the streaming aspect.
That's
Direct
true, but it's
competitor.
the same as the cable.
And then the other thing that I would add is you go look at another factor, maybe what about ESPN? Not necessarily Disney, but ESPN, because you look at the UFC relationship, that might make a little more sense because I've also in golf and other sports, ESPN and NBC will work together. Football, golf, various other American sports. It's happened in the past, right? Like the Masters. Well, that's actually even ESPN and CBS. That's a little different, but like that one is kind of an example. You see the Super Bowl rotates around, maybe an ESPN Plus type of a deal to add to the streaming, but library wise, it still throws me for a loop because if you've already got Peacock and you already have the library for convenience sake, for maximizing viewership and maximizing ad revenue, it doesn't make sense to me to consolidate between maybe a cable show with SmackDown and then two non-cable shows that you send over to Prime. And now you have to have two subscriptions to watch live WWE on top of Peacock to watch replays.
Here's why, right? For WWE, from their perspective, it'll more basic. Okay, let's say if Peacock, Peacock would likely be willing to offer WWE less than Amazon Prime would be. And the reason for that is how many people would subscribe to watch Raw who haven't already subscribed to watch the pay-per-views. Whereas Amazon Prime, they're getting all the new customers, most of which Peacock have already got, right? So Peacock would maybe only get a few more customers, a few thousand more customers, whereas Amazon Prime could get hundreds of thousands more.
Leaving cable, now we're talking about you have to subscribe to separate services to watch each show.
It's ridiculous.
And not only that, if SmackDown's still going to be on cable, and SmackDown is SmackDown going to streaming? Is that official?
SmackDown is not. SmackDown is
and so
not.
If SmackDown's not, now you have to have a cable bill, you have to have a Amazon Prime bill, and you have to have a Peacock bill. Yeah. From a business perspective, that makes no sense because advertisers will advertise on all three, but guess whose pockets those go into as well. You're splitting with each network.
It's true.
There's no reason to not consolidate and stay with NBC Universal as a whole, at least in my eyes. I think this is
think Peacock is
the future.
Likely.
Yeah, I think Peacock is where they're headed. I don't necessarily see Raw actually, even though likely is the rumor. I do not see it leaving USA right away. I really don't.
I'm going to be honest with you. I hope you're right because I do think it's too early to be exclusively on streaming. But the other thing you mentioned, ESPN, I very quickly want to move on before I pass it to Shad quickly. ESPN, I spoke about this in the video yesterday too. That Mark Shapiro, right, the Endeavor, I forget his exact he's level with Vince McMahon, right, in the terms of TKO. He said that TKO are open to a short-term combined deal for UFC and WWE Raw. So ESPN is a potential, suitor in that too. Yeah. I don't think it's likely because I think it comes back to the thing again because Disney technically own ESPN. That I don't think Disney would want to, have their on ESPN Peacock promoted to watch a pay-per-view. That's why that one doesn't make sense to me. But
yeah.
Who knows? Shad, what about you? What do you think about this situation?
Yeah, I mean, off of a financial aspect, I mean, it's definitely a major W for them. You talk about a 40% revenue off of this. That's incredible. But I guess the outlier to it is just viewership, in my opinion. I'm curious to see what the viewership is going to be going on to Friday Night SmackDown being on a cable network compared to being on a non-cable network like Fox, where a lot of people tend to watch Fox compared to watching the USA Network. But I mean, neither here or there. I think we're gonna always have our brass of people that tend to watch WWE, and I still think the numbers will be pretty relatively well on that. And I think it's a win for USA. I mean, they are a network that doesn't have a lot of programming that's a lot of people draw into. WWE is kind of their cash cow in regards to the network with pulling in views, and I think getting SmackDown again is a major win. Definitely curious to see what's going to happen with Raw and NXT. I know that they've mentioned the idea, and obviously you guys have mentioned about the streaming network. We'll have to wait and see what happens. I know that streaming is kind of the current and future of how things are going, but when it comes to live television, a lot of people still use cable networks or Dish, whatever it may be, even like Sling or Roku and stuff like that. So it's definitely going to be a interesting transition. But overall, man, you make money, you make money. It's a W for them at that point.
Absolutely, no, it absolutely is a W for them, and it's exciting to see what the future is. Hopefully, that won't mean that we'll have to pay for 10 billion different services, but I think it might be heading that way. But anyway, now let's move on and let's talk about tomorrow night. Let's talk about AEW Collision, because we're going to see Bryan Danielson taking on Ricky Starks in a Texas death match. Of course, a few weeks ago at AEW All Out, they took on each other in a strap match. That was truly a truly great match. But between both of them, a lot of people considered it an instant classic. Rematch tomorrow night, AEW Collision. Collision needs the viewers right now. It's slightly going down. They want to bounce it back up. It's a stacked card tomorrow, and I think a lot of people, including myself, will be tuning in to see what goes down here. I do think Ricky Starks needs the W. However, I don't think he's going to get it. I'm kind of worried about the amount of, outside of MJF, the amount of losses the young stars are currently taking in AEW, but that's another point for another day. Clark, you of course were at All Out for the first match between these two guys. What do you think heading into this one, and do you think that Ricky Starks does need the win?
Yeah, when it comes to the strap match at All Out, in the words of the great Chris Berman, I remember because I was there. But it was an awesome match. Since Danielson had mentioned that Starks carried him through it, which is awesome to hear. I love the Texas Deathmatch format. I hope they go with the same 10 count or submission, only 2 ways to finish. I love that. I want a very clever Bryan Danielson finish, and I want him to take the loss to Ricky Starks. But I want Ricky Starks, the heel, to really, really, really do something clever to get the win. Whether it be, I don't know. We saw Last Man Standing at SummerSlam, Brock and Reigns with burying him under the rubble, right? Something like that. Cheat to win. Cheat us out of a Texas death match. Give us the brutality to an extent, and then have Ricky go over. I know you said you were afraid that Ricky wasn't going to win. I want Ricky to go over in this one, and I think that's the way you can do it without truly burying Bryan Danielson, right? Maybe he's just trapped under something and can't get up. There's something there you can do to have Ricky get the win and not lose any steam for Bryan on this final run. And that's the route that I would go. No matter what. Texas Death Match, Bryan Danielson, Ricky Starks, sign me up.
Absolutely. I mean, that's also a great point. The stipulation could play into it, play into the ending of it. And Bobby Petito, shout out to Bobby Petito in the comments there. He's also saying, he's saying that Bryan Danielson is, wrestling Zack Sabre Jr. at Wrestle Dream October 1st. So he reckons Danielson will get the win. That's an interesting point, because perhaps Zack Sabre Jr. could play a role. I said it, play a role tonight. I said it earlier this week that I think for more casual fans, they need to explain about this Zack Sabre Jr. Danielson match. It won't get them too excited. Once they see it, I'm sure they'll be amazed, but I'm not sure how they'll feel going into it. Zack Sabre Jr., coming and attacking Danielson tonight or something. Well, that could be interesting, but we'll have to wait and see how it goes. Now let's move on and let's talk about the TNT Championship. Of course, the current champion is Christian Cage. I mean Luchasaurus. But I mean I'm loving this storyline now. When it first happened, I didn't like it. I was like, this makes no sense. As it's gone on, Christian Cage has made it work. His vision that he had has come more and more clear. I love it how every time he says, and we are the TNT champion. I think it's brilliant. But tonight, it's going to be Luchasaurus versus Christian Cage versus Darby Allin in a handicap match. Triple threat match. As Christian Cage said this week, it's going to be certainly interesting. I actually reckon Christian Cage is going to try and win the title in this. And then it's going to go wrong. And then Luchasaurus will end up saving Christian Cage. So Darby will be about to get the pin on Christian. Luchasaurus will come and take Darby out and then get the pin. But I do reckon Christian Cage is going to screw over Luchasaurus in this one. But I'm weirdly very excited for it because it's a very fun storyline. Christian Cage he's hooked me into it. And at first I thought it was a rubbish storyline. So fair play to Christian Cage. I should have never doubted him. But what about you, Shad? How are you feeling heading into this triple threat or handicap, whichever way you want to look at it, TNT Championship match?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely excited for it for the point that you made in regards to just the dynamic of what we have with Christian Cage and Luchasaurus kind of being impromptu co-champions, you would say. Christian acts like the champion, Christian holds the title, but Christian never won the title and Christian doesn't wrestle in the matches. So it definitely adds a interesting dynamic going into it. Obviously, we got Darby in it. Darby has been going through this, that, and the third with these two. And you also have to add the point to Nick Wayne, right? Nick Wayne is also Darby's protege, and he's also been pretty heavily featured within this rivalry. So, I mean, I'm thinking either two things. The first thing is that we get Christian trying to pull shenanigans, trying to, find a way to be the true champion, and Luchasaurus kind of sees it and is not with it, and we see a bit of a fracture, or maybe the initial wrinkle of them, what we would expect to potentially break up. But I kind of want to see the second part happen, and I want to see, and we mentioned it prior before, in regards to like our Dynamite post shows. I want to see Nick Wayne turn heel, and I want to see Nick Wayne be the reason that Darby loses this match tonight, and I want to see Nick Wayne align himself with Christian Cage, because I feel that Nick Wayne is a person that is new to the light of AEW, and I feel like adding him with Christian and aligning himself with Christian could benefit him. And I feel like it just added different spark to his character as a heel. I don't think anybody would really per se expect it, just because we've known him as like the lovable young guy, prodigy, young phenom that has hit the circuit. But I kind of like the storyline of him just kind of being fed up with Darby and being in Darby's shadow, and kind of just being brainwashed by Christian and turning on Darby and helping Darby lose the match, and then we get a program between Darby and Nick Wayne. So that's what I'm hoping. I could honestly, it's 50-50 in my opinion what direction it could go. But I would like the latter part to happen. But yeah, I'm excited for it. I think that Luchasaurus throughout either way will retain the champion tonight, though.
Yeah, Nick Wayne heel turn would very much be interesting, and I've been on board for it for a few weeks now as well. I originally thought he might actually join Swerve when they did the entire AR Fox thing. I was like, well, he's gonna end up going the other way now, isn't he? I'm glad he didn't do that, but I still do think he should turn heel on Darby, so I'll agree with you, Shard. But now let's move on to another match on AEW Collision that I'm very excited for, and that is Andrade El Idolo versus Jay White. Oh, this one has the potential to be special. It really, really does. Two guys who I don't want to say are underutilized. I mean, El Idolo definitely is, but Jay White, he's relatively new. They're giving Bullet Club Gold a lot of TV time, but now let's see Jay White really excel as a singles competitor, and let's hope it starts tonight or tomorrow night. I'm really am. It's one of those ones we don't want either to lose, do you? Because they both need wins. But I think Jay White has the potential to be the biggest star, so I'm gonna say have Jay White win. Maybe have this lighter fire in Andrade, but it's a difficult one. But I think it's gonna be a great match. What do you think heading into it, Coby?
I think that's the thing is you hit the nail on the head. Is we're in this situation where neither men should take a loss or can afford a loss. Andrade, his momentum fizzled out because he won that ladder match against Buddy Matthews, and then nothing really happened. I think we were all kind of expecting at least some Malachi Black versus Andrade match, and it never happened. I don't know what the situation is with that. And then Jay White's in I think a better situation than we all would have thought. Having thought of having him actually show up to AEW because we were all like, okay, how good does he work? Blah blah blah. I think he's working well. The Bullet Club Gold's really entertaining television. Jay White's good. Juice Robinson's great. The the Guns are doing really good as well. I think as a whole, their presentation, their packages are really good. At the end of the day, you just gave the Bullet Club Gold a win against FTR and the Young Bucks. I think if Jay White takes the loss, that kind of shoots your momentum because you just gave them such a big loss. Collision right now is the Bullet Club Gold show. And I don't know if there's a position where Jay White should lose this match. I don't know where else you can push him. I don't know if there's like say Darby Allin does win the TNT. Is that one of the main feuds? Is a Darby Jay White feud? I don't know where the direction is you go with this, but Bullet Club Gold is almost one of, if not the main focus of Collision. Andrade's kind of a mid card player. He isn't a top star of the brand like the Bullet Club Gold is. That's why I do believe Jay White does take the victory in this case.
That's a great point. It really, really is. Like you said, Bullet Club Gold is kind of now the face of Collision in a way, along with Bryan Danielson, now that CM Punk isn't on the scene. And I'm glad, because I remember when the show was about to start, we were all complaining that, Bullet Club Gold were getting no time, but Collision has really given them that platform to excel. We've got a hilarious comment from Matt Williams here, which I'm gonna have to acknowledge, and that is Matt Williams saying Nick Wayne starts calling Christian Cage his dad. That is just
Shout out Matt Williams.
But that is something which you just know they're gonna do
Too
that.
funny.
Like you just know now.
They have
now
to.
you've said it, Matt. No, not jokes aside, I actually think they're gonna do that now.
I do. I even sent in the chat, right, Ben? I was like, look, if it's me, Nick Wayne costs Luchasaurus the title. And I mean, if they could have it that literally Nick Wayne costs Lucha the title somehow and then drags Christian Cage on top of Darby for the win and then says, like, I did it for you, Dad. And it's too funny.
It's
Buddy's rolling his grave about that.
thing is,
Jungle Boy face turn.
As soon as I said it out loud when I first said it, I was like, oh, this comment's hilarious. I'm going to be completely honest here. I completely forgot about Nick Wayne's dad being Buddy Wayne. And now I'm like, it's so dark, but at the same time,
They're going to do it.
So, like, it is just so crisp. Like, it's so bad, but, like, if Nick Wayne's up for doing it,
I think he would be, because they literally let him get beat in the head with a portrait of him and his dad.
Yeah.
In that thing,
it'd be good TV.
Yeah.
It'd be uncomfortable, and I mean that in a good way. But we're gonna have to wait and see. Hopefully, Nick Wayne's, they got stuff in store for him because he's a heck of a talent. And I really do think Christian could take him to that next level. But now let's talk about, going to that next level. And let's talk about Iyo Sky, who is currently the WWE Women's Champion. I've been a fan of Iyo Sky, right? And I want to say this off the bat. I've been a fan of Iyo Sky since I think 2017, and I was watching her in Stardom, and she was amazing then. I honestly think that she's one of the best wrestlers in the world. I don't think people show her enough respect But here's the thing. I'm giving a bit of a hot take here. I do not think that Iyo Sky really has much of a character right now. I really don't. She's the women's champion, and yeah, I don't care about her character at all. And that sucks to say because in the ring, like I said, she's one of the best in the world. But I just don't care. They've not given me a reason to care. She still feels almost like a lackey to Bayley, but then Bayley feels like a lackey to her a bit as well. There's just no real character there. They've not told us who she is. They've kind of always kept her a bit mysterious, but they need to just tell a bit of a story behind her. She's the women's champion. She should feel a lot more important than this right now, right? She has the talent. She should be in that position, but something's off with it right now, right? They need to give her more of a character. Talking about characters, Asuka is going to be the one she is facing tonight for the Women's Championship, and I am excited for that match. I really, really am. I think it could steal the show very easily. I hope it's given time. I hope it's given the main event slot or opens the show. One or the other. Regardless, I hope it gets given time because these two women could put on a banger of a bout. So certainly that is something which I am looking forward to tonight. But I'll pass this first to Coby. Coby, what are your thoughts on this? Do you think we could see a new women's champion on SmackDown tonight?
I don't think we do see a new women's champion in this case, but I do share very similar sentiment. At the end of the day, this match is happening. That's the most I can kind of say about this match. As a fan, I know they're both really talented wrestlers, and I want to kind of not argue, but for the people who says Iyo Sky doesn't have charisma, it's like the charisma aspect isn't just the way you can talk. Like the non-verbal communication is such a key, and the way like she has those, she excels in those, and that's where her charisma is at. Same thing for Asuka. Asuka is not necessarily going to be able to tell you a story in English, but she's going to be able to look like a psycho or look like a killer, and she's done that before. But at the end of the day, from the booking of this match, the biggest thing it has going for it is the fact that it's happening. I'm as a fan, I'm gonna watch it. If I at the end of the day, I'm not excited to see it. I know I'm gonna watch it. I know it's gonna be a fun match. But at the end of the day, it's like I'm not going out of the way like, I'm very excited for this match because I'm not. The only reason you can be excited for it is because it's going to be a good match. And that's kind of one of the faults that AEW has often or has struggled with is just like, they're booking a match because it's going to be a really good match. It's like, well, like I need to have a reason to care. And in this case, I necessarily don't. I don't think Asuka gets the win because I do think they're going to keep that title with Iyo. At the end of the day, I give a lot of flack for AEW for waiting on things. Give me something with Bayley and Iyo.
Oh, yeah.
Have Iyo go face. I said this last week. Is your move having Dakota Kai be your mouthpiece for Iyo Sky? Because Dakota's not wrestling this year. And you brought Dakota back for television. I think that has to be intentional for something. She's time and time again during the faction's run almost spoken for Iyo as well. So I think that could be where this goes into play. But that's where my money's at is like not get it over with, but move into that because I'm done with Bayley just in a what seems a never-ending feud with Shotzi. And the tension between them's already fizzling out. I need something to happen, something to excite me in this women's division.
That's a great point. Like you said, Bayley's very stagnant right now. The one thing I will disagree with you on, and it's one very slight disagreement, is that you said you're not, excited for it, and because there's no story and all that. And me, story is king. I absolutely agree with it. But there are certain matches where, to us as hardcore wrestling fans, where we don't necessarily need that much of a story, and I think this is one of them. But you're right, to the casual audience, that point, it's very, very true. Like, they're not going to be too into it because they've been given no reason to particularly care, especially about this Iyo Sky character. Bailey, Iyo Sky could certainly take that to the next level. But what about you, Shad? What are your thoughts heading into this women's championship match?
I mean, I'm super excited for the match, but to your point, my excitement is coming from a fan of both women, and then just it being a fantasy book match for a lot of us for the last several months, especially knowing the reality of it happening from EO moving to the main roster a year ago. But I agree to your point in regards to how it was booked because there wasn't really much of a booking towards it. EO is in a revolving door feud between three incredible wrestlers on the WWE roster and three of the best women's wrestlers on the roster. Four, if you also include Bianca, who's currently off right now. But you got Bailey in the aspect because there's this underlying feud behind doors that we've been waiting for, and hopefully we get to it. We got Charlotte Flair, who's always in the title picture for whatever respectful reasons. She's one of the best women's wrestler, if not the best women's wrestler of all time. And then you have Asuka, who is, a dominant champ, the previous champ, the person that Iyo got the title off of. But there's nothing that's threading it into it. It's just TV time of having all three of them encounter and being with Iyo Sky. Ben, I 100% agree with your point in regards to presentation of what Iyo Sky is, because this entire run, she has been known as Bailey's lackey, being a tag team partner to Dakota Kai. When we know that there's a reason why fans are so behind with her, they see that star power. We see the star power, the look, the music, the in-ring ability, everything from what she did on NXT, and obviously with her work in Stardom and whatnot, but specifically NXT, man, like coming in with that black jacket in the hood, how she comes out with the dark lights and the music and just acting crazy and deranged, just going into there, not crazy and deranged character wise, but just it looks so good. And like to Kobe's point, like charisma doesn't have to come with how you speak. She speaks well enough English to give you lines to make you invested within feuds. Like you don't need to have cutting edge promos every single time. There's ways to create champions and ways to get people over without having to use a lot of verbal communication, within doing nonverbal communication, and just letting her work upon that. And I think that's the detriment of what the storyline and the title reign has been for her, because we have her just hanging on this thread of damage control. So, but in regards to the match, I'm super hyped for it.
Absolutely, I agree with you there. Some great points. What about you, Clark?
Look, I agree with a little bit of everything here. There's no story here. It's a stone left unturned, without question. You have Iyo Sky and Asuka, the two best Japanese women's wrestler in the WWE, arguably on the planet, and we haven't told a single story about it. There's no history here, given their upbringing in Japan and everything. There's no history about how they both came through NXT. There's nothing. And while I agree with hardcore fans, yes, it's Iyo Sky versus Asuka. This should be a banger. Tell me this story. It's a stone left unturned. It's a waste of time doing that. It's just thrown in your face. At least there's half a story with Bailey and half a story with Charlotte, like Shad said, and when we talked about the revolving door thing. But at the end of the day, Iyo Sky and Asuka, we left on a main event on a SmackDown, and this should have been a main event of a pay-per-view. We've got two with similar histories, similar backgrounds. Both came up through NXT, both former NXT champions fighting over a championship they've both held, and none of that has been told. None of it. This is about Bailey and Iyo Sky and about separate rivalries and all kinds of other stuff, and it's convoluted. And as much as we complain about that AEW women's division, this isn't great. I hope the match is great, and I believe it will be, because Iyo Sky and Asuka are awesome. And if you give them 15 minutes, they'll blow our brains out. Absolutely, they've got us on that. They'll knock it out of the park. I have no doubt. But tell us a story and give us the story, because both Iyo and Asuka deserve that.
I could not agree more. I think we've summed it up very well. But this is a match which everybody, all the hardcore fans, are very excited for. Casual fans, it will make little to no sense to. And Iyo Sky's character, it needs work. because she's so great that she deserves to have a better character written around her. That's something for the writers to fix. But that does bring us to the end of the show, guys. It's been a fantastic one. You know, we've spoke about a lot, we debated about a lot. So thank you to everybody who's joined us. Thank you to everybody who's commented. Matt Williams, Numero 1 Superfly, Bobby Petito. Thank you guys for joining us. We will be back tomorrow the same time to give our thoughts on SmackDown. So we will see you then. Thank you, Clark. Thank you, Shad. And thank you, Coby, for joining me. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Enjoy SmackDown.